have to do. Right, let's move on then. I'm just going to introduce Derek, and then hopefully we can get on with the competition. So I'd like to introduce you to Derek Gale. Those of you who watched last year will have met him already because he's a very welcome return, having judged last year. A very experienced photographer, would that be reasonable?
Old.
No, I don't mean very. No. I mean you've been a good photographer for many years, is what I mean. I can recommend looking at his website, Gale Photography. There's a wealth of fascinating stuff there. Stunning pictures, they're really inventive. I really enjoyed looking at this afternoon to remind myself. Thank you. So well worth visiting that. He also provides tuition and workshops. Yeah, so and does talks, and as you can see, judges competitions, as I said, a welcome return from last year. Again, like last year, he'll be commenting on all the photos. That's why we've restricted the number of entries. So rather than flashing through some as we used to do, everybody gets comments. I certainly found them fascinating last year, and I'd like to think it's improved my photography. I'm not sure I'm capable of that, but don't let's go there. Right, we will be doing portraits before the break, and then afterwards, flight and action, and finally, birds in Berkshire. And as usual, at the end, you'll have a chance. Everybody will have a chance to vote for the overall winner. So let me make sure we've got a mic on. That should perform whichever way. Look like a swan.
Might be the swans in Worcester are dead, so I hope not.
Oh dear. Oh, I didn't mean to bring the. I didn't mean to. I mean to be on the other side.
We have bird flu.
Oh. Whereabouts in Worcester?
Oh, me,
Yeah.
or the swans.
Oh, actually, you, but the swans will do as well. I used to live there.
I live in St John's, Lower Wick, or just off Malvern Road.
Oh, yeah. Right, now then, let me get the picture. Hopefully get the picture working.
So that bit's working.
That bit's working. So
just check that my remote's working.
Let me move out the way. Is your remote working okay? Oh, that's a very good thing. Yes. Sorry.
Didn't seem to move.
No. I think that's a reasonable. Having gone to the trouble of changing laptops so we could do it, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And apologies for not having thought of it.
I'm fine, as long as people don't mind the writing.
How's that? Yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. I think.
Okay, it's not changing.
Is it not? That might be because we swapped laptops. It's plugged in the same there.
Hmm.
Thank you, everybody. You want it? Yes, that's fine.
Is this because it's only actually looking at one image now?
No, it shouldn't be. It should be. Hang on, let me just go back to that screen. I don't think so. There's. It should go on there. Yeah. You don't want to do that, do you?
Was that me or you?
That was you, I think.
It's working. Yes.
I think it's sometimes these things get a bit.
Sometimes they need to be told what to do, don't they?
Yes. Have to be persuaded. Right. Good luck.
That's slightly worrying.
I know my laptop better than you do. Oh, I'll put it on full screen.
The days of a Kodak carousel projector.
Oh gosh, yes.
Turned it on and plugged it in, and it worked. Although sometimes it didn't work and it set fire to your slides.
Oh, do you want me to?
No, they look better.
I've seen that one enough times to know that it's a little bastard.
It is.
Which does sound like a bit of an insult to me. Right, okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me back, which tells me one of two things. Either I didn't do too bad a job last time, or you couldn't find anybody else to do it, which perhaps is the one. But if you saw me talking last week, just explain who I am. So my name's Derek Gale, and I'm a professional photographer stroke photography trainer based in Worcester, in Worcestershire. where the source comes from. And in fact, if you want the limited edition Worcester sauce flavored crisps that they're selling at the moment in one shop in Barbourne Road in Worcester, get them before they sell out. So Worcestershire. And I used to be a scientist working in a research lab and another research lab, but now in 2000 I became a professional photographer and said, I'm not just going to do portraits and weddings, and then spent 9 years just doing portraits and weddings. So I'm not now a professional portrait photographer. So there's certain rules. There are no rules in photography, but there's some guidance that it's definitely worth following. But one of the rules in portrait photography is that you have at least one eye in focus. And generally, if you've got a sort of, if it's a profile like that, then obviously that eye. If it's straight on, then preferably both eyes. And if you've got an angle sort of like that, then the nearer eye rather than the further eye, because we can't cope with the nearer thing being out of focus, but we can cope with the backward thing being out of focus, more out of focus. But in general, I'm a big fan of only showing me the bits that are interesting in the image. So when I take my photography, I generally crop nearly everything in some way or other, either be square or wide format or whatever, to make the composition work best for that subject. Now you will hear, if you talk to photographers about the rule of thirds, which isn't a rule, but is simply guidance, but it's definitely worth following it to start with. So there are rules about guidance about where you put your main subject, which way they might be looking relative to the edges of the frame, all of that sort of stuff. But with portrait photography, which is what this is the portrait section, we're looking to try and potentially catch a bit of character of the creature. Now, humans have got character, and trying to show the character of a person in a portrait is very challenging. It's good fun, but it is very challenging. But I'm trying to, when I looked at these, I tried to look at how I would feel if they were portraits of people. It doesn't matter to me that it's a common or a rare bird, because that's not important. It could be, the lesser spotted great or whatever that only lives in one tree in South America. To you, that would be hugely significant. But to me, it needs to be following the rules of portraiture. Does that make any sort of sense at all? So, as I said, I like to see just the subject in the frame, not lots of distracting stuff in the background. And this is a good example of not having distracting stuff in the background and the bird filling the frame pretty well. And it's doing some interesting stuff because it's doing the head back, making quite a lot of noise. Does anybody know the noise one of these birds makes? No. Okay, that's a shame.
Well, I can play it on Merlin, but maybe it break.
I can do a peacock impersonation, but that isn't really very helpful. But here we've got, the bird's in quite nice light. There's some good feather detail there, some shadows along the shadow line there. The background is fairly consistent. There's no distracting highlights popping through this area here. And it's doing something reasonably interesting. It's doing this leaning back thing and making presumably a noise. Having said I like to get the character, but there are also the technical issues, so reasonably sharp, reasonably well exposed, with no sort of overexposed white bits. I remember from last year that having lots of overexposed white bits in frames and sort of losing detail in those areas, and I like to see detail in those white areas. So we've got a reasonable amount of detail here. It's a little bit soft to me, but I do like the simplicity and the way it's controlled well against the background. Yes. a corn bunting. A variety of LBJ. Now I'm a big fan. We get quite a few dunnocks in the garden, and my wife is very disparaging about them. They're just brown. But if you look at them closely, like looking at this corn bunting closely, you'll see that how beautiful the sort of subtle changes of tone are. The little white edges on these feathers, a little different white edge there, these stripes and lines here. You realize just how complicated the feather patterns are on these birds and how very attractive they are if you get past the "it's a little brown bird" thing. And you know, it looks like quite a chirpy little bird. It's got a nice sort of broken smile like dolphins have. Yes, we like dolphins because they bottom-nosed dolphins because they've got those sort of smiley mouths. And you've got these big feet. It's perhaps a younger one because its feet look way too big for its body. And they look as if it's going to grow into its feet. But it's a very simple composition. It's just the bird on a post, which is the same color as the bird, which is a lovely sort of continuation of that color pattern. You know, there's stuff happening down here, which is like this line of feathers here. So that's sort of a repeat theme, which is also very good. And then you've got that very undistracting background. So this is a long lens with a wide aperture, and then the background is far enough away so that it's been thrown out of focus. So there's a really good sort of isolation of the bird there. One thing I always aimed for with my portraits is to get a little catch light in the eye, just to give a little twinkle. And I have been known to put those in afterwards. And this is what people used to do. I know somebody in the days of slides who used to get a needle and poke a little tiny hole in the slide where the eye highlight was required so that the light would shine through it to get that little twinkle of the eye. And so here we've got this, it's a little black hole, and it would just be helped with a little, for portrait work, to have that little twinkle of extra light. But, you know, it's nice and sharp. It's a beautiful study in all those different tones, and a nice, very well-controlled background.
Oh, Hoatzins. I think you say it, Hoatzin.
Hoatzin. So clearly I can understand why this is not in the birds in Berkshire section. It looks a little bit somewhere South American. So I used to do family portraiture, and it was always interesting having a teenager involved in the family group. So you had mum and dad and the teenager. And the teenager had been dragged kicking and screaming along to the family portrait shoot and really didn't want to be there. And I reckon this one really doesn't want to be there. There's definitely a story there with this group. You've got, you know, mum going, you know, I'm ready to be photographed, Mr. DeMille. And you've got dad who's sort of looking quite stoically. Clearly, mum wanted to do the shoot. And then you've got the teenager who doesn't want to do the thing at all. And you've got lots of context there. You're telling me that it's somewhere in a jungly sort of place. Got some fairly exotic looking plants down here, which color match the birds. And they've got a sort of shape here that matches the crown feathers. And at first glance, it almost looks as if this one is wearing a long cape made of sort of long feathers, but obviously it's sufficiently out of focus to make you realize it's part of what's happening behind. But I really like that sort of family grouping in that context. There's enough sharpness and enough little bits of character there to make me think of it as a family portrait. So a masked shrike. See what I mean about a catchlight in the eye? Yeah. See, it makes so much difference. So that one of the corn bunting with a catchlight in the eye, we just lift it up a little bit. So that's what we want. We want to break up this otherwise sort of black hole and bring a little catch light in. Now, one of the difficulties about photographing, and this applies to a number of images, and I find this myself, is that birds, compared to where you are, if they're a reasonable distance away, aren't very big in the frame. And you sometimes have to crop a lot to make the bird big enough in the frame in order to get the composition right. So the composition's good here. We've got this support here. We've got this, this stops you going out of the frame that way. You've got the bird looking into the frame that way. You've got a nice base down here, and the line of the tail goes down into the corner. So there's some good compositional stuff there. To me, it's just been pulled a little bit too much, that we're losing some feather detail, we're losing some sharpness, and there's a little bit of a highlight around the edge of the head. So I think you've tried to sharpen it a bit, but to make it have some sharpness back, because that's quite a nicely framed composition. It's got a nice expression on its face, good expression on its face, and that lovely little catch light. But I think it's just been pulled a bit too much. Looks very coy, doesn't it? Really? You're going to photograph it? Just make sure you get my best side. So again, we've got really good control of the background. There's a lot of green, and that green is effectively acting as a frame for the warmer tones, these browns and golden colors and yellow colors of the beak and the legs. So we've got a good contrast between the rest of the frame and the bird. It's sharp enough. It's losing a little bit. Can I just tell you about, I had these pictures in advance, and what I found with, this one's reminded me, what I found in having them in advance, I go through them to start with and I go, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. Then I go through them again, and I leave it a couple of days, go through them again, and my list changes. They move around. And some of the images here were in my initial list, and then they moved away, then they came back, then they moved away. Because some photographs are like fireworks. You go, wow, that's fantastic. And then when a firework's gone, there's nothing else there. But some images that aren't fireworks, you see them and you think, okay, that's interesting. You go back, oh, that's got a bit more interest. Oh, that's got a bit more interest. And if I judged images cold tonight for the first time, probably the order would be a bit different. But because I've had them for a few weeks, I've had time to appreciate them, move them up and down the list. So this one reminded me. So yeah, that's well controlled. It's a little bit in the middle, not quite in the middle. I'd be minded to either have it exactly in the middle, put it in a square frame, or have a little bit off one side to just make it a bit more asymmetric. But it's a nice little coy expression. And if it was me, I don't know what your rules are about this, I would probably just clone that off away from its head a bit. You've got lots of lovely background you could use to get rid of that, but because that line just sort of breaks the line of the bird, and I find it a little bit distracting. And it's that sort of fine detail that separates images from other images. Again, I suspect not Berkshire. And you've got this non-British looking vegetation. This does not look like a natural UK plant, and certainly the bird doesn't. So you've got a strong branch for the bird to be on, a background which is not too distracting because it's a different color tone to the bird, and then the bird itself is a strong color. You've got the lovely blues, some good feather detail, and a lovely catch light in there. Not a point catch light, but a sort of section of the sky reflected in it. And it's looking in a reasonable direction, so we can go along the bird, because we tend to read images from left to right, along the bird, and we're looking into that space. I do find the background on this, because it's lots and lots of lines all pointing in different directions, slightly distracting. If it was more out of focus, you might not have been able to do that. more out of focus, it would make the bird stand out a bit more in terms of sharpness as well as standing out in terms of color. But it's good. You can see both legs, you can see both back knees. The iridescence on the tail, mirroring the iridescence on the feathers here, and it's all nice and tight together. But I just want there to be a bit more separation with the background, and that's the difference in a photographic competition. If you're in identification or bird lists, that's fantastic. But there are these small differences that pull images away from one another in competitions. Much more UK-ish, and I'm a big fan of diagonal lines. So diagonal lines are very good because they give a sort of dynamism to the composition, and we don't see in rectangles. If we've got might have frames on our glasses, but we put some sort of artificial edge. But generally, we have a sort of diffuse view up and down and left and right. But as soon as we take a picture, we've constrained something within a frame, and here, I like the frame to be part of the composition because you forced us into that rectangle, whatever. So why not use that composition? And here we've got a little bit of that. So this tail line goes into the corner. Obviously, this doesn't come from the corner. If this came from the corner to corner, there'd be an awful lot of nothing underneath it. So it's in a good place. And again, we've got good legs, a nice little poker pin through the slide eye highlight. Again, I think we've pulled it, cropped it a little bit too much. Either there wasn't enough resolution to start with, or it was smaller in the frame. But it's in really nice light. It's strongly lit. It stands out very clearly against the background because apart from this, the background is fairly neutral. These nice diffuse green tones. But I do want there to be a little bit more quality there because compositionally it works very well.
Bring that
So it's quite interesting. The first time I looked at this, it's a bird with two heads. But then I realised, obviously, because you can't really see the feet very clearly of the second one. They're in shadow. But it's very, very useful that this one is against the sort of highlight because it looks as if it's almost got a halo. You can almost imagine those sort of Greek icons and Eastern, this sort of golden circle round it. So here you've got a bird looking at you. So it's looking at you. You've got you looking at me? I can't see anybody else here. That's a film reference, obviously. Yes.
Yes.
And it's been disturbed by you. It's eating its seed. The other one's not that bothered. And this one's looking straight out at you. And it's lacking a little bit again in critical sharpness on the eyes. That one looks a bit more in focus and it's a bit further away. So there's just that little lack of sharpness. But there's so much undistracting in the background. There's good green against these brown tones. Looking at what you've got here and here and here, I think you've got space to get the tail in. And I think if you're going for what looks like the whole bird, try and get the whole bird in. You're just missing a bit of the tail because I don't think there's that much down there as there is up here. I think you've got space to get it all in, or you lose more of the tail. It just looks a little bit as if you could have got that in and haven't. So I think either you need to crop it in more and lose a bit of space above its head, or get the whole of the bird in because there's some lovely colours through there.
purple sunflower.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that one. There's a couple hidden on this screen, so I can't see them. Yes, and beautiful background, i.e. there isn't much of a background. It's out of focus. It's dappled enough to give us some context. It's either the sky or some water. And the bird itself is nice and sharp. We've got a reasonable catch light in the eye. We've got the beak nicely shown against the sky, and then these lovely feather patterns on the bird, which are really good. It's like the corn bunting. It's basically not very brightly coloured, but there's some really lovely subtle stuff going on. And you've got enough of the feet to say, here is the context. This bird has got great big feet, so it doesn't perch very much. It walks about on soft materials, so it doesn't sink. So it's got these long feet, and I like the way it's going downhill into that space. The beak is pointing in the same direction, and all that's lovely. The thing that I find slightly distracting is the fact that this area of the rock is so out of focus. And it's a very light tone. It's this area is about one of the lightest areas in the frame, and our eyes naturally drawn to that. And the beauty is in this lovely, lovely rendition of the bird here. And I find that is just a little bit, because it's obviously so much closer to us. You're using a long lens, you've not got that much depth of field, that we're losing sharpness in this area. And I think it probably needs to be toned down so it isn't quite as distracting, because it's such a light tone. Because that would probably have done better than it has done if that wasn't quite so soft.
Cormorant.
Loads of cormorants near where I live. I'm not too far away from the River Severn. We've also got the River Teme, but it's quite regularly see cormorants flying up and down, doing the wing thing, and so they're really quite common. But this one's been really, really nicely caught, and there's some lovely stuff happening. And I just love what's happening with these feather tips here, where you've got these tips here and it's going against that dark area, and it's just going down in that shape there and coming out. Then you've got the primaries with a little light edge. And there's plenty of detail through. Not much of a catch light in the eye, but I can forgive that. But there's some lovely, lovely detail, and then this line coming down the tail. And then it's perched quite nicely on this relatively interesting branch, with a well-controlled background of the reeds and such like. The thing, again, this light areas thing, this branch is quite light. And so you've got a very light area near the edge of the frame. And I would be minded to just darken that down a bit if you can, because what's happening in the feathers here is absolutely lovely. And that shape, that sort of fractal geometry that's going on there is really, really nice. And it fills the frame really well, and the background is not distracting, but just that little bit of loss of detail there. But I do really like that. Oops, was that two?
Yeah, it was two. Iberian green woodpecker.
So, I think what you've done here, you said, let's imagine he's marking these images out of 10. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, let's imagine he only marks my woodpecker out of 10. He only gives it 5. If I put 2 in, then I'll get 10. I mean, there's some interesting things going on here. One is that when light bounces off a water surface like that, the light gets polarized. So you get lower exposure on the light bouncing off the water than you do of the light. So obviously some goes through, but it does get polarized, and you get this greater color saturation off the water than you do off the bit that isn't the water. But I really like this composition. You've got, nice profile view of the bird, and then you've got its reflection, obviously with its reflection here. Background is context, but not distracting. This is bright, but not so bright. And there's some lovely, lovely, lovely stuff happening down here, especially the quality of that in that reflection. In fact, I would almost say, get rid of all of the top, turn it upside down. That would be more my photography head, but it's really good having that double bird there, having the reflection. I mean, it's a good enough shape without it, but having 2 works, I think, really well.
Green heron.
It's a little bit green. I was trying to work out why it's called a green heron. But we've got a nice big bird in the frame, and there's some good rendition. It's got its beak slightly open, so we're starting to see inside there. We've got a color change inside between the mandibles, and there's some lovely texture across here, some lovely patterns again of the feather patterns, and then the sort of the legs coming down, gripping onto this surface. This rock, you see, is not out of focus, so it's not as distracting as the one with the slightly distracting rock. The background isn't as out of focus as other images. So what that can happen there is if you've got some complicated stuff happening in the background, it can be slightly distracting. So I would probably prefer that background to be a little bit more out of focus. But the bird itself is rendered really nicely, and it's well placed in the frame. I'd be minded to get rid of a bit more on the right hand side, just to get rid of that space, so that the bird itself it's got its space to move into, but we don't need so much behind to see where it's come from. But there's some very attractive tones there, and it's certainly got a good sort of expression on its face.
Robin.
We get robins in our garden. They think you're pigs, don't they? Apparently they evolved following things like wild boar that was snuffling all the soil up. So they would follow the wild boar. So when we're digging in the garden, they just think that we're a pig when they're coming down to eat worms and such like. And yeah, they're singing like mad at the moment in our area. You know, the full beaky sort of thing. And they've got this lovely character, haven't they, robins? You know, they're very, very tame. They'll come to you if you wait long enough. If you've got mealworms or something, they may well come and take food out of your hand. But you know, we've got a nice perky expression, nice catch light in the eye, good background, nice and context, but out of focus, so it's not distracting. And it's, you know, it's got this sort of side profile, and we've got somewhere this whole shape here is pointing off to the right hand side of the frame, like the beak is. And it's pointing off towards the right hand side of the frame. That's pointing off to the right hand side of the frame. I don't think you need any of that. So any of that is, there's a lot of left hand side when actually everything is happening over here and going that way. So I see this more as either a square or almost a vertical format image without all of that. So for tame enough, perhaps try again, or just crop that one so that you haven't got that so much left hand side, because it will improve the composition.
White-necked Jacobin.
Yes, I mean, just look at that lovely, 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 lovely iridescence on the feathers on the back, on the head, on the neck. Absolutely gorgeous. And you know, here we've got the bird looking to the left. So we come in from the left and we go to the bird, and then the bird takes us back. We go in from the left, the bird takes us back. So, you know, unlike the robin where we go shooting off the right hand side of the frame and we've gone, we are coming back here. It's got a reasonably well controlled background. There's something up here which is very bright and pointy that I would be tempted to do something about darkening. And that area there on the edge of the frame, things on the edge of the frame are distracting, again, could be darkened down a bit, because there's some lovely stuff happening through here. You've got little shape poking up there, takes us around, takes us around, takes us around. And obviously spiders. Spiders are amazing, because you know, when you get completely clear your head of clear your house of cobwebs, the following morning there are cobwebs. And where are those spiders coming from? But there's some really nice shapes and textures in that one.
Peregrine.
It's a peregrine. Now I remember the days. I remember going down to Slimbridge with a guy called Jerry Tallowin from Grasslands, who's big in the RSPB ringing circles and everything. And we went to Slimbridge and he said, see that tiny little dot over there on the mud flat? I said, that's a peregrine. I haven't seen a peregrine before in my life. And then I say to my wife last year, I'm just going down to the cathedral to watch the peregrines for a bit. Okay. And there's a pair nesting in Worcester Cathedral. It's, oh, yeah, there they are. Oh, there they are. Cycle past. Oh, there they are. It's like, oh, there are peregrines everywhere now. Worcester and Malmesbury and everywhere. Pershore Abbey, there's peregrines. Just fantastic. But here we've got a peregrine. You know, it's obviously been doing its business. We've got blood on the beak. They don't look so elegant on the ground, do they, as when they're flying around going incredibly fast and furious. And to me, I want it to be either doing something or flying, because it's there and it's plonked down. It's on the road. It doesn't look like a particularly natural environment. You know, it's got a nice catchlight. There's some lovely feather detail, and the background's not too distracting. But I feel that needs a little bit more of something to be happening to really bring out the character of a peregrine, because you know they're sat there and its feet looks a little bit awkward, and I think the most masters of the skies. So fantastic to see it and get that close, but I want there to be something else that's showing me more of its character.
Brambling.
Yes, I'm terribly sorry. I've been brambling. I went brambling last year when we make crumbles from them, blackberries and apples. But you know, lovely, simple background which matches the tone of the bird, which is very good. We've got lots of lovely feather detail again, with the color changes, the interesting patterns, the fascination, these little wavy lines that you get. And you know, the feet are doing what they need to do, and a reasonably good tail line. There's probably a little bit too much above its head. But there's some lovely stuff happening. Again, thing about distractions, that to me, you've got lots of stuff that you could clone over that. But this sort of thing is distracting and just makes that little bit of difference. The point of difference, as they say on MasterChef, that pulls it up or down compared to other images. But it's a really strong portrait of brambling.
Festive coquette.
So bird on a stick, bird on a stick. But a completely different sort of bird on a stick. Good background, very horizontal stick. I like the brambling stick more because it's more of a natural looking angle. It's the stick that you ended up with, but lovely catch light, and these feathers are fantastic. Array, it's like it's wearing some sort of fancy cravat. And you know, what's happening? This shield of feathers on the front of its head, very interesting. There's some lovely stuff happening, but it's a little bit bird on a horizontal stick, and I want there to be a bit more of you know what's happening with the brambling in terms of its stick. This is very horizontal, and compositionally it's not as exciting.
Cricket warbler.
That's a great pose, don't you think? And it's very interesting seeing the number of pictures of birds where the background colors are very complementary to the color of the bird itself. That may be a feature of where they live and that they've evolved to look like that. But here we've got these lovely warm tones. Even the sort of, my eyes look like that sometimes. These lovely warm tones of the eyes, warm tones on the beaks, with these lovely warm tones in the background. So that's very complementary. The background isn't screaming difference. It's adding to the general sort of feel of the image, and that sort of thing that's definitely worth working for. It's got a very curious posture, so it's basically hanging on to whatever that plant is. But it's got a good shape. It's looking in a good direction. Again, I'd probably just take a bit off the top and potentially a little bit off the left-hand side. But it's a nice little portrait of that bird.
Great skewer.
About to do something. You're not quite sure with birds like this. Not renowned for being particularly well disposed towards people sometimes. And yeah, it just looks threatening, doesn't it? You've got all that dark dark foliage, plumage, you know, and again, you've got it sat on something that sort of matches the bird's colours, with, you know, a mackay or whatever it is, heather moorland type background, or sedgy sort of background, so it's not too distracting. And it's about to do something and fly off. Again, I think you've lost a little bit of sharpness because it's been cropped in a lot, but you've cropped it in to get the composition just right. You're filling the frame nicely on that side and it's going into that. And so I've got that aggression of the bird and it's very purposeful feel.
Nuthatch.
Big fan of nuthatches. And, you know, just remember the rule, if it's pointing upwards and going up, it's pointing downwards and coming down and going down a tree, it's a nuthatch. If it's pointing upwards, it's a tree creeper. I don't know what happens if they meet in the middle. But good control of background, great advantage of long lenses and wide apertures, good distance between the bird and the background. And it's looking into this space, which is sort of following the line of this branch here, and you know this is what Michael Stipe of REM used to do this, and he used to put makeup on this part of his face when he was performing in the 90s and such like, and you know, it looks a little bit like a pirate, I always think, but you've got a good line coming here, good support line here. If it was me, I would tweak it so that line comes absolutely out of the corner and that one comes absolutely out of the corner. Then you'd have this zigzag across the frame, which would add a little bit more to it. But it's very nicely isolated against the background and well framed in that branch.
Purple gallinule.
So are these bananas or plantains? I don't know. That looks like a banana leaf. And it's interesting. I'm trying to work out the scale of this, whether those are really small bananas or really big bananas, and the bird is smaller than I expect it to be. And it's in a rather curious position being on a banana plant, because these feet tell me again that it walks about on lily pads or stuff like that, something to spread the load. But beautiful, beautiful colors here, lovely iridescence on the back and a nice little catch light. There's quite a lot that isn't the bird. Can't really do it, but you know, if you take the bird out, we want the context, we want the fact that it's on a banana, we want the fact that it's in a sort of tropical environment, but by having the bird being quite so small, you're telling us the story, but I think we need more bird and not so much story. Perfect line out of the corner going to the bird, really like that. But I just want the bird to be a bit bigger. So, you know, if I do that with my hand, the bird's gone completely, but I've still got most of the image and I want it to be bigger. This is bigger.
Lilac-breasted roller.
And I don't rate the chances of that beetle very much longer being alive. So I said about diagonal branch, there's a strong diagonal branch. We've got a cross composition. Again, we've got those lovely complementary colors, the colors on the back of the bird being picked up in the background here and here. The blue of the bird, there's some blue in there of the beetle that it's eating. And all of that is lovely. It's well placed in the frame. It's doing something. It's showing the sort of the character of the bird. I do think it's been cropped too much, though. We've got lots of sort of random noise. We've lost detail. Whereas if you started off probably with the bird bigger in the frame, you wouldn't have had to do that quite so much. So although you've got the composition, to me, just right, where the colors are just right, it's been pulled a little bit too much. We've just lost a little bit too much quality, which is a shame, because that would have done better if it had been a little bit sharper.
Crimson rumped toucanet.
I said about the quality. You know, you look at the feather detail on here, it's sort of, there's not much detail. Here we've got lots and lots of lovely stuff going on. And a beautiful detail in the eye. We can see even the iris. And we've got, you know, some sky context, you know, a little catch light there. And the bird's obviously dipped its beak in something wet. So we've got all this lovely sort of iris shininess coming off the beak, and a little bit of translucency through that, the bit at the tip of the beak. There's a lovely, 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 lovely detail and texture through there, and a good complementary background. So you've got some sort of greeny tones, but it's not distracting. There's no bright highlights or anything. We're just looking at this sort of bird with quite a bit of confidence about how it looks.
Rainbow lorikeets.
Do you think this would work very well in black and white? Because, you know, I used to do a lot of black and white stuff when I did portrait photography and wedding photography. But sometimes there is absolutely no reason to change anything to black and white. When you've got this level of color saturation, it's like, blimey. It's like somebody's painted it with very, very strongly colored acrylics. And whether you boosted the saturation a little bit or not, I don't know. But here we've got this fantastic color and fantastic texture. That to me has a little bit of the Tim Flack about it, you know, the photographer who photographs animals and such like in slightly different ways. But there's very much the character of that bird to me. Whoever did this, we don't do color matched edges anymore. We used to, but we don't do that anymore. So either you have a white line or you don't have a line at all. But of course, against this, if you'd lost the line, it would change the composition a bit. So perhaps a white line, but certainly not, oh, I'll pick something from the beak color and have it as my my key line. We don't do that anymore. But other than that, I mean, the background's completely black. So you've got nothing to distract from all those fantastic colors. And just what the feathers are doing is wonderful. Quite like that one.
Reddish egret.
Yes. They do stand really vertical, don't they? So yeah, it's absolutely straight up and down, boom. And the interesting shape, you know, well, egrets generally, herons generally have got this sort of very attractive curve to the neck. You've got context, you've got some texture that it's standing on, you've got the sea or a big lake, you've got this town, city in the background out of focus, but enough to give me some context about where it is. And then it's against a very neutral colored sky. So it almost looks like not a real one, doesn't it? It's so rigid, it's so vertical, and but it's got a little bit of malice there, I think. But yeah, there's some interesting shapes there, and the fact that it's so vertical at the bottom and that its feet are so symmetrical, I find really interesting.
Cock-tailed tyrant.
I'm not going to mention any other sorts of tyrants that might be in our lives at the moment. Yeah, there's again, very well controlled background, i.e., you know, a bit of texture, not much too distracting. There's something happening here, but I don't know whether that's really happening or not. There's a sort of line down there which is a little bit distracting, but it's in a good position. Certainly on the plant, you know, it's braced itself nicely. It's balancing itself with its tail, so you've got that little triangle there. The tail's spread out, and you've got detail of the feathers, and it's looking off to one side, so it's not bothered about you. Again, there's a lot more space around the bird than I think needs to be. So I think you could usefully crop off a chunk of the right and the top, perhaps even some left, just to tighten up the composition. Whereas this is a very neutral background, so it's not giving us that much context. But you know, I'm covering up probably less than 10% of the image. So we've got 90% of the image left, and it's not the bird. We need some context, but just need a bit less of the context in this case.
Kestrel.
Yes, I said about complementary colours. So we've had some very complementary tropical colours. We've got some complementary non-tropical colours. So here you've got some oak leaves with browned edges, oak leaves up here all going brown with all these different textures, and then something else coming down here. And then in the middle of it, looking straight at you, this kestrel with tones that very much match the tones of the leaves surrounding it, and that's very attractive. So here we've got a well-placed bird up and down. It's well off to one side. I would be probably minded again to take off some of the left, not to put it right in the middle, and to darken down that a little bit. But it's out of focus, it's quite bright, because what's happening here with the kestrel is absolutely lovely. That straight on expression, the detail of the feathers, we're not getting any burnt out detail anywhere. So that works to me really well.
That was the last
That's
one.
the last one. So now you want me to tell you. Right. So as I said, when I judged these, this one was in my prizes and then moved around, and then got lost, and then came back again, and then got lost and then came back again. So this one's actually a commended. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's first. That's a commended. That's second. That's a commended. And that's a commended. Is that right? You've had first, second, and 4 commendeds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Break.
Break.
Right, welcome back. I'm just going to set the first block to everybody, and then we'll be getting on to the second category, which is light in action.
Light or action.
Right, all right. Does that look okay? Right, so as long as you can move on.
Yes. Let me try. Okay, testing. I think you have to move it on once. And then it'll move back. Okay.
I do not understand.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Red
So-
kite.
Red kite. So I have been told I need to take less time because I talk too much. My wife would probably agree. So I will have to be quicker, but you know the rules, crop it, get the exposure right, don't expand it so much that we're losing quality, don't have any distractions in the background. And so here we've got flight action. Now I live in Worcester. In the 3.5 years we've lived there, we've seen 2 red kites from our garden. And coming along the M4 today, I saw a flock of about 9 or 10, thinking, oh, red kites. But hundreds up in Stoner, in that sort of area. But I mean, this is fantastic in terms of expression. I mean, if that was a portrait as well. But here we've got the bottom half, which has got all these lovely green tones at the bottom. Got the top half where it's either raining or snowing lightly. And this bird is doing all its stuff. You've got the primaries here bent up just in frame. And light shining through the tail feathers. I don't mind that we don't have the whole bird because it's so well placed in the frame and it's so tightly kept And it's really, really nice and sharp. And they've got that little bit of beak open, bit of purposefulness about it. So I really like the tightness of this composition and how you've got that, haven't got a distracting background, but you've also got a story happening in the background because it's raining. So this is a really strong image.
Griffin vulture.
And yeah, probably about pre-COVID, we went down to the Verdon Gorge in the south of France, which is like 2,000 feet straight down, and had griffin vultures flying below us, which was quite distracting. There's a griffin vulture. Oh, it's down there. And yeah, these two are, it just has the look of that sort of part of the world. They're a reintroduction as well, aren't they? The griffin vultures in the Verdon Gorge. And here you've got a really strong bit of interaction here. This one especially like an avenging angel with its primaries out, really big and threatening. And this one perhaps not so much. This one we can see the beak. That one, wouldn't it be nice if we could see its beak a little bit side on, because we've got the head disappearing, but there's a fantastic interaction. And this I really like. But I found, after looking at it a bit longer, that the birds were disappearing into the background a little bit, especially down here. That one's fantastic against that out of focus stuff in the background, but this one's tending to disappear against that bird and is disappearing a little bit here, but is a tremendous interaction.
Shoveler.
Yeah, shoveler. One of the talks that I do for camera clubs is about movement in photography, and stopping movement and showing movement and stopping it with a short shutter speed. So here you've used a short shutter speed because the water that's come out as this bird's taking off has splashed down in that lovely arc, and there's a whole row of little droplets pouring, exploding off the wings. We've got the lines of movement from the bird here, where you've panned the camera a little bit and got these horizontal lines in the background, no distracting highlights. And you know, that shape where it's just going just full power, it's just about to do a full power stroke down to take off. And that's lovely. It's got a very purposeful beak, purple yellow eye, golden eye, and its wing position's fantastic. The only thing that lets it down technically is that white area where we've lost detail, but I still really like how that's placed in the frame and where it's going, where it's come from and where it's going.
Avocet.
I haven't seen an avocet since Sunday, when I went to the Upton Warren Reserve near Droitwich, which has got a salt marsh, a salty water area, which is the first area in 2003 where avocets bred inland. And there was quite a few avocets there, looking absolutely lovely. And I think, oh, that looks like it's an avocet. Wait a minute. And salt water and a freshwater area, and quite different. And they are lovely birds, absolutely. Not for nothing is the avocet, the RSPB signature bird. And it's caught something. So that beautiful, elegant, upcurved beak is split into two. And look at what the ripples have made that reflection do. That's just lovely. And the ripples have made its legs go a bit wobbly as well. Again, we're getting the greater saturation at the bottom compared to the top. And we've got feather detail. This side of the bird, which is the biggest side of the bird, is in shadow. So we're losing a bit of brightness. It's blue, reflected, probably blue sky bouncing off the water. But there's some lovely shapes through there, but this beautiful reflection and the ripples in the water are very appealing, and it fills the frame very nicely.
White-bellied woodstar.
So we go from, you know, a salty water bird, very much a European sort of bird, to something that's tropical, jungly, and again, well-controlled background, well-cropped. Sort of looks a bit familiar, this image. There was a couple in this whole set that I remember from last year, whether I'm remembering that really or not. But, you know, it's in a good place. There's its tongue is poking out here. It's got a good little catch light in the eye, and it's flying. So there's really little buzzy wings. which haven't been stopped, unlike the shoveler, which were stopped, but they're moving much faster. But it's well placed in the frame, that could be tightened perhaps. But there's no context. It's just there in an open space, and I want it to be doing something. This is flight action. Yes, it's flying, but I want it to be there to be more happening there.
Green wing teal.
And here we've got a duck. We obviously had the shoveler earlier, which was exploding out of the water. This one's doing the sort of flapping thing where it sort of flaps up and drops back down again. And we've got some beautiful iridescence on the wings, the patterns of feathers on the bird, and some interesting reflections. And the ripples on the water are lovely. This is quite dark, and this area is quite light. So it's shading towards being quite light at the top. And I don't want it to be quite so light at the top. I want us to be concentrating on this one, and this one's going, oh, not again. And of course, down at the bottom, we've got a little pokey in through the edge highlight, which you can improve the image by losing. In fact, the bit of the image I really like is this. You've got the lovely ripples on the water, the right-hand side, with just that duck doing something, where the other one's not really doing very much at all.
Pallid swift.
Which looks very much like the pallid swift I recall from last year. And it's the same issue as the hummingbird. It's beautifully caught. It's beautifully caught. The detail of the bird's feathers is absolutely lovely. There's no really bright areas, there's no dark areas. We've got lots of lovely stuff happening, little catch light, and it's come from this space, it's going into that space, and it's well placed in the frame against this complete blue. But I want there to be more happening. Catching that like that is really, really clever, really good camera technique, knowing where it's going to go. But I want there to be a bit more happening, because that's lovely, but I want there to be something else.
Red and white crate.
I was trying to work out some terrible Dickensian pun about crake expectations, but I decided not to. Obviously, that's a paradox, because I did obviously then decide to do that. But so the flight action here. So the action is this family group going out. You've got the little one in the foreground or in the middle, then you've got potentially another one behind. But you've got this one saying, you know, this is what you do. You peck at things on the ground, and this one's saying, and you walk forwards. And you've got, you know, you've got the context again. You've got this lovely mixtures of these brown and white tones, so they can get camouflaged. And the merest hint of a mirror lens there with a donut. I don't know whether this is a mirror lens, but whatever it is, your bokeh circles look donutty in that case. And the background to me is a little bit too distracting. Having said that the pallid swift didn't have a background and I wanted there to be more, I'm now saying the background here, although this group is lovely, the background's a little bit too busy. There's loads of light stuff happening in the top third, whereas I want this bit of the bird on the left-hand side to be the bit that attracts my eye. But it's lovely to see that family group together.
Barn swallow.
I'm slightly worried about the bird on the left. It's pointing in the wrong direction to get any feed. So it's cool. Mum's coming or dad's coming. I'll open my beak. Why am I not getting fed? She's behind you. So here you've got a strong base, you know, whatever they're standing on. You've got a beautiful interaction, the interaction between that juvenile and the parent, passing what looks to be a cinnabar moth caterpillar, even the stripy caterpillar. That interaction is really lovely with the bird forming that shape, making a triangle. And then you've got a light bird out of focus on the left-hand side, which I find very distracting. It's been pulled a bit too much, I think. We've got lots of JPEG artifacts and such like, but you've seen that fantastic shape, the curve of the juvenile going up to the triangle of the parent's wings. And I don't think you need the one on the left-hand side, because it's taking away from that story. I think you've lost a bit of quality because you've cropped it so much, but I think you could crop that off and get that lovely story happening there.
Eagle owl.
I remember a while ago I went to the Hawk Conservatory, and they demonstrated a bubo from in front of the audience to behind, and it obviously was feeling lazy, and it bounced off somebody's head in the audience, which was quite a surprise because they're quite a hefty thing. So good shape, background, it's flying over this hedge, background's not too distracting, and you know, it's got a purposeful look on its face. It's, again, we've just lost a little bit of quality, because I think this shape where you've caught the wings is absolutely lovely. The general placement in the frame is lovely, but we've just lost a little bit of critical sharpness somewhere that made it sort of go down a little bit.
Chestnut-breasted coronets.
Yep, couple of hummingbirdy type things like last year, but they're interacting really well. This one's trying to have nectar from here. This one's got its eye, the one on the left has got its eye on that nectar and saying, oh, you can just clear off, mate. And they're having a bit of a fight, and you've used the shutter speed that's shown enough of the wings. I'm not wings, you know, stop the movement. I'm not bothered that we've clipped the bit of that wing or that wing too much, because this is quite a nice tight little group with that beak pointing up to the flower. You've got that triangle of desire and aggression. There's some lovely colours there and an excellent background.
Black-headed gull.
Haven't seen a black-headed gull since Sunday. Yes, they're very attractive with the light behind. I was talking to somebody at one of the hides, and saying, you know, it was saying, oh, the light's a bit dazzling. I said, yeah, it's low winter light. You know, when you get it behind a bird, it's fantastic. And I got a few images of black-headed gulls, which I'm not showing you, with the light behind them. But you know, you get the light shining through the tail feathers, and generally you get this very attractive rim light, and that is where the wings are placed. That's a very attractive shape with the semicircle, that arc of feathers, is very appealing. There's a lot of emptiness. I think we've got a little bit too much context again, but the way that the bird's been captured with that little white ring around the eye is very appealing.
Hyacinth visor bearer.
Yep, another sort of hummingbirdy picture with not so much blur as the one where it's just in the middle. You've got lots of blur. Here we've got you've got the upstroke where it's not moving so much, and you know, you've captured that lovely iridescence, the separation, the light shining through the feathers, and it's sort of undercarriage down look of the feet. It is an interesting place in the frame. Having said, I like to see things cropped up tight. There's a lot of stuff underneath it in this case, and we're losing a bit of detail on the flower, which might be its target. But I want there to be a slightly different composition, perhaps crop it so it's not quite so high up in the frame. But beautifully rendered colors and textures.
Black skimmers.
Yeah, 1979, I went to southern Texas, having seen just a few weeks before black skimmers on one of the David Attenborough Life on Earthy sort of things. And I thought, what a fantastic bird, goes along with its lower mandible in the water, and then it flicks up if it lands. And I thought, I never thought I'd see one. We went to southern Texas. It was like, black skimmers! So excited. I haven't seen one since. So I was really pleased to see something with skimmers. They're not doing the skimming thing. But yeah, you've got an interesting, you know, this one's wings, slightly different. And then this one, and it's just about to put its mandible. It's one of the few birds with the lower mandible longer than the top one, because it does this, flies along with its lower mandible in the water, just below the water surface. So, you know, lovely to see them, but they're not doing the skimming thing that I want them to be doing. And we've got an awful lot of top here, I think. So there's just about an interesting reflection going on here. There's just about a little sort of child sketch of a bird happening in the water here. I just want there to be a little bit more. But so thank you for reminding me that I saw them in Texas.
Buick swans.
Yes. So I looked up what this part of a bird wing's called. I can't remember the Latin name, but it's called a bastard wing. Yeah.
Aluva.
It's something like that, isn't it? Yeah. So if you see a bird flying past what used to be called Ayers Rock, whilst you're talking to the communications officer in Star Trek, that would be Uhura and Uhuru and Alula or whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is a real everything down to land. You've got the air brakes down, you've got the flaps down. Look at the angle of the wings. They're right down, you know, the position of the bird, it's acting like an air brake. And you've got the primaries out. Everything is saying, I'm trying to lose speed to land on the water. And that's really nicely caught, that positioning of the bird landing. I'm slightly worried about the gull in a few moments' time. You know, the tuftids aren't bothered. It knows that it's missed. But, you know, it's about to have 5 kilos of swan land on its head. So that's lovely. Unfortunately, it's such a bit of a crop, I think, that although we've got that fantastic positioning, the composition's good, all of that, we've lost so much quality that we've got lots of noise, and that's distracting for me because the capture of its position is absolutely lovely.
Lesser kestrel.
Lesser kestrel, again, yeah, look at those. They're really showing up, aren't they? And you know, it's in a good place in the frame. It's been cropped. It's, you know, it's good left and good top and bottom. It's got space to fly into. It's got a good angle, and the tail feathers are out. The primaries are out, and there's some good light. The light's coming from up top right. It's shining down. You're shadowing the bird on its wing, and you know that's very appealing. It's a warm sort of afternoony evening sort of light as well, isn't it? It's got that match light has warmed up the color of the bird really well.
That's the last one.
So I like that the angle of the bird a lot. So that's the last one. And now I need to refer to my piece of paper. So I've got, because it's a smaller amount of images, I've got a first and a second and 2 commendeds. That's a commended. That's commended. That's right, number 2, yeah. That's first. I mean, that was first immediately. I didn't need to look at the others. I thought, you know, that's just fantastic. That's second. So that's a commended. That's a good set, actually. That's first and a commended and second together. And then the other one, that one is a commended. Yep.
Birds in Berkshire, a bit faster this time.
Yep.
Fewer stories.
Even faster. But it's the stories that make it interesting.
Yeah, you haven't got time for stories in Birds in Berkshire.
There will be no stories. I'll shut up. That needs a first click onto the next one. Yeah. Okay, my change isn't working now. It's all right. Isn't it the bit right at the top, up there? No. Okay, it's working.
21 of these.
So,
Goldfinch.
goldfinch. Wouldn't have noticed. Everything I said about foregrounds and backgrounds and matching the color tones of the subject, you know, here, look at the breast of the bird, look at the background. But again, you know, I'm covering up the bird and I've still got 90% of the frame visible. That is where the frame is in there. not the left-hand side, which is empty space. But if you make the image much bigger, we're going to lose a little bit of quality. So we've already got a bit of softness there already. But I think if you simply crop it, it will tighten it up. That will go up to the diagonal corner. We lose that because otherwise it's lovely.
Goldcrest.
Goldcrest. Haven't seen a Goldcrest since, no. A couple of weeks ago, actually, on Malvern. It's just there. It's Goldcrest. Same as some of the other images. I think it's been pulled up too much. It's a good composition. We've got the bird itself is in a good place in the frame. It's filling the frame nicely. There's some strong lines coming down, but we're getting lots of noise where we're basically looking at just a small part of the frame. And I think we're losing a bit of quality. And I would like there to be more. But, you know, in terms of where it is, the composition, generally the background control is very good. Just want there to be a little bit more quality.
Egyptian goose.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, you could almost look at this and think you couldn't actually see a bird. It's that broken pattern against the broken pattern of the leaves is sort of hiding it. It's a very effective technique. And so again, we've got some tones that are from the bird matching the tones. There's tones here matching the colors of these autumn leaves. And it's quite interesting sort of looking down from here. But I think we've lost it's camouflaged it so much, we've really sort of lost the outline of the bird and we've lost its structure. And although that's an interesting thing sort of visually, I want there to be a little bit more of the bird visible. And I want there to be less sort of distraction in the background. But it is fascinating how that's happening. But as a bird picture, I want there to be more bird and less background.
Grey heron.
So the heron standing like the ruddy ibis, no, not ibis, egret. Egrets, I've had a few. Had a very, very, very straight leg. Look at that straight leg, absolutely together. It's balance and you know, nice light coming from one side, shining through the beak, the translucency at the end, a little bit of bounce back in the eye of the bird. We have lost feather detail where you've got this real contrast between the strongly lit bit, that the shadow area there, and it's almost like if they're standing that still, you can do an HDR set and do a underexposure, exposure, overexposure set to get the detail in every area of the feathers, or just underexpose it a bit and then lift up your shadows afterwards. So it's well placed in the frame, and I love that translucently, but we're losing just a little bit too much detail.
Thistle thrush.
The picture of the goose, you were shooting down above the goose and it was disappearing into the background. So here you've dropped down, you're shooting at much more the level of the bird. And I was wondering how much further can that worm get stretched before it breaks? And it's like, ugh! But you know, that's really nicely placed. That triangle of mechanics that are going on. I'm not too bothered. You know, I said about covering my hat, putting my hand over it, and it's covering up only 5% of the frame. Here, actually, the bird is there, but the rest of the story is happening over here. So there's a section, a triangle there that is the composition. And I quite like, okay, you could take a bit off the top, but that's a very tight composition in terms of focus, because out of focus, the focus bit is really strong. And that line of that worm is fantastic.
House martin.
House martin, obviously on very man-made structure. We've got this wire fence and this rusty wire. Again, we're picking up the tones in the bird, and that's been a theme this evening. It's really interesting. We've got a neutral background. The bird is quite well placed against that background. There's no edges disappearing into light areas, and there's feather detail in these light areas and a little pin highlight. Again, I think it's been pulled a little bit too much. We're losing a little bit of quality, but it's very nicely placed in the frame.
Peregrine.
I said I wanted the peregrine to be doing something. And it took me a little while to work out this was a car, but we're down low, looking at the tire here, the structure here, and this peregrine that you've disturbed with its prey. And look at the colours in there. Look at the it's like metal melting and going rusty. It's just lovely, the stuff that's happening in there. I think you can tone down that light corner. If you cover it up, yeah, the lighter tones are in the bird. And I would also get rid of that light bit on the edge. But you know what's happening in here, because the bird's against a darker area, is just lovely. And there's something happening. And it's the same peregrine, I assume. It's got blood all over its beak as well. And this feather dangling down, which is not one of its feathers.
Goldcrest.
Very sweet, very perky little bird, with, you know, this little gold crest. And they always look as if their wings are too small. Just put on some tiny wings. But, you know, lovely expression. Again, like some of the others, I think it's been pulled a little bit too much. We've got some nice rendering of color, but we're losing detail and getting lots of noise in these areas here. Perhaps we have to shoot it at a really high ISO to reduce camera shake or something, because they're moving all the time, aren't they? So it's just losing a bit of quality, but it's very perkily placed in the frame.
Lesser spotted woodpecker.
And here we've got, it's been busy, hasn't it? Look what it's done to that tree. Here it's, you know, you've got the tree, you've got the bird itself just peeking around the corner. But I think the point of focus has just missed the bird. So I find that slightly distracting. So instead of having that pin sharp and this softer, we've got it the other way around. So I think you've just missed, great to see one, but you've just missed that point of focus.
Tree creeper.
So if it's pointing up the tree, it's a tree creeper. I used to sit in my office where I used to work in Leckham Regis near Wantage. And out of my window, I would watch tree creepers going up the trees around the lake that I could see out of my office window. It's a terrible place to work. And they're really camouflaged, like little mice creeping up the tree. Here we've got a tree creeper, and it's tending to disappear into the tree. Its shape is, you can see the shape of it, you can see the beak, but it's sort of going into these lines and such like on the tree, which is very good for camouflage. But I want it to be standing out a bit more than that. So I think we've lost something by having that angle on the tree creeper.
Sonnet.
My wife's favorite bird. They're just brown, but look at them. You've got these lovely shades of brown. You get the change of color on the head. They sing nicely. You know, what's not to like? And she said they skulk about in the garden. They don't, not like robins. But, you know, it's obviously got this, whatever it is, caterpillar of some flavor. It's well placed in the frame, matching its surroundings. Again, I think it's just been pulled a little bit. We've got a little bit too much softness, but it's very well composed, well placed in the frame, nothing distracting. And, you know, it's got some food.
Kingfisher.
A friend of mine lives in near Bradford on Avon. And so she goes down and photographs the Bradford on Avon kingfishers that are very obliging, along with these other people. This is Anne-Marie. Other people, all of whom are men, and she's not. And they're saying, "Oh, did you press the button on the top of the camera?" But it's, you know, good line, good non-distracting background, and we've got a cobweb for context, but it's not quite sharp enough for me. And this bit here it's very soft. So although I love the colors, I love how the bird's been placed in the frame, I think we're losing a little bit of sharpness, and I want there to be more, because it's posed for you beautifully. Its feet are lovely, its tail's lovely, it's turned its head sideways. All of that is great, but I think we've just lost a little bit of sharpness.
Tree creeper.
Tree creeper. So tree creepers don't look like this. They're either going up the tree in a beautiful shape. They don't ever sort of poke out like that. And I really like this unusual view. It's caught something which has got wings and lots of legs. I'm not quite sure what it is. But it's using its tail here as a brace to triangulate. So it's got that stability. and there's a sort of really sort of interesting whirl of shape happening here. So it's a very unusual view. Slightly dark, but I don't mind because it's such an unusual viewpoint of a tree creeper.
Shoulder.
And that's a great photographic joke, you know, because they're dabblers, so we see them doing that. You know, I've got a picture from the floods in Worcester. It's flooded rugby pitch with rugby things coming out and a swan doing this between the rugby posts, which is quite interesting. Yeah, so that's a great little story. I think we've got a lot of water and not that many birds, but it's interesting they're not all facing the same way. You've got two facing that way and one facing that way, so you've got that break in the pattern, and that's an interesting. What's happening in the middle is great. I think there's a little bit too much of everything else.
Little egret.
Interesting. It started off full frame and then got smaller. So yes, little egret with a rather startled looking fish just there. I wonder what's happening. So here they've got this shape coming from the corner, and then that lovely curve going up, and then the shape going back down. We go back into the corner. And there's some beautiful stuff happening in the water here. I edited this at home, and I lifted it up a little bit. It's a little bit grey because you've exposed it to keep the detail in the feathers, but I just lifted it and it just makes it a little bit brighter, lightened the eye, lightened down the beak. That shape is lovely, but I think if you could just lift the exposure a little bit and then edit back the feather detail, it's a really interesting composition. You know, action all happening there. It's just got a little opportunity to bring it up a bit, but I still like it.
Mandarin.
That did the same thing. It was smaller and bigger. So color saturation, black and white. Would we want this to be black and white? No. And look at all those colors. You know, they're fantastic, like a firework. There's feathers around the head are like a firework, and the texture and the color of that iridescence up there, going from the greens to the purples, is just gorgeous. One of the brightest areas is the tip of the beak, and that's not sharp. So I think there's just not quite enough depth of field here. I want that to be sharper. It's great color, great texture and pattern, but I just want a little bit more sharpness there, as well as having the eyes.
Red kite.
Red kite. It's interesting because it doesn't look like a red kite at the tail, does it? Because where it's spread its tail out, it's not forked anymore. But here we've got a good support with a Y-shaped support. You've got the bird with its wings in a very good position, its tail spread out. You've got the light shining through the tail feathers. There's a good sort of shape to its head, and light shining through up in the sort of this gap in the wing at the right-hand wing at the top. And that's all lovely. And it's balancing that other stroke of the Y. It's a little bit soft, again, because I think you've cropped it in and lost a little bit of detail, or you're shooting through a heat haze or something, but we're getting a little bit of softness, which is a shame because it's such a fantastic shape, and it's well placed in the frame. It really does need that bit. Not sure it needs that little bit there. You could crop that, but lovely. This is what tree creepers look like. Tree creepers do this going up a tree. So you've got a very well controlled background, very vertical tree trunk, and then the tree creeper doing what tree creepers do, going up the tree and using their tails as a stabilizing device. And you've got a nice gap between the tip of the beak and the tree. So that's a very, very tight composition. It's come from down there, it's going up there. So it's got a story.
Corn bunting.
Corn bunting. So I always reckon things like buntings eat seeds, but of course they eat whatever they can get, don't they? So this one's caught some insect which has died. It might even be more than one. Died a horrible death, and we've got some oats and such like waving around to tell us that's where we are. We've got some context of this fence post, which is much the same color as the corn bunting, and it's framed within some plant material. So that's a good perky portrait of a corn bunting doing stuff, doing corn bunting around.
Stone chat.
Stone chat. Can't do it.
No.
Can't do it. Went down to Gower last year and it was like walking along. Somebody's knocking two stones together. Oh, stone chat. All over the place. Fantastic birds. So excellent control of background, much the same tones as the plant that it's on. Good tones on the bird and it's looking perkily straight at you. Again, I think we've lost a little bit of quality where it's been expanded, cropped in too much, but it's a very tight controlled crop with good balance of color and texture.
Mandarin.
So when I first looked at this, I thought it was standing, sitting up, sort of coming up right on the water without flapping its wings. But it is, of course, on a fence post of some flavour. Just looking at the change in colour saturation. Again, here we've got the birds turned a bit sideways, so we're not having a problem with the beak being out of focus and the rest of the bird being in focus. So we've got this fantastic ruff of colour, and we're showing all these lovely blue textures going down to this vertical fence post it's on. So it's a nice portrait of a mandarin duck showing itself off. Is that the end?
Yep, it's the last one.
And the winners are, right, step. That's second, because that's what tree creepers do. That was in, and then it wasn't, then it wasn't. Even though I said it needed lifting, that's a commended. It does need lifting, but it is commended. That's also a commended, because it's a tree creeper doing what tree creepers don't do. And that's a commended. So that's my first. Into the results computer.
Get up the right folder.
The names of the birds. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Derek. All work is almost over. So we have all the
Well done.
the three winners. Well, I believe I have another folder of the roses. Yeah, they're not that. We'll have to. I'll put the.
People could work it out, Sally.
Yeah, the one folder. Sometimes I know how to run. Believe it. Actually, no, we'll show the photos first.
This is still the golden lines free.
Right. The next bit is from the three winners, three categories, which we're going to show in a moment. You then get to vote on which is the overall winner. So you will see there's a red kite from the flight, thistle thrush, birds of Berkshire, and the rainbow lorikeet from portrait. Okay. Not until I found it. So I'll step through the three pictures. I'll give you a few times round. If you want to do that, you want to step them through? That's it. So we can get a I think you're going to vote for both at home
And Derek vote.
Oh, I'm not voting. I've already voted for, by virtue of these three being the ones you're choosing from.
Right, has everybody made up their minds? Okay. Would you like to launch the poll on done? So those of you at home, you've got three choices. You can only vote for one, so please do that now, and then we'll count them up. And Jane, could you put the lights up, and then we'll have a vote as we show the pictures. So we've got three to choose from. Would you like to count, Jane? We'll do the counting as well then. Okay. Oh, sorry. That was hastily typed on my phone, so I apologise for that. I couldn't put it in until I knew who the winner was. Right. So in the room, who wants to vote for the red kite?
Okay.
I make that 14, and got to move on. Who wants to vote for the missile thrush? 4. And rainbow lorikeet. Oh, right. So that's looking strongly in favour of the red kite. How are we doing online?
8 people out of 15 voted so far.
Right, we'll give them a few more minutes. Seconds, sorry, yes, seconds.
Ooh, she's hard.
No, she's right. We should. We're overrunning. How are you doing? Come on, those of you on the. You don't have to vote, but this is the time to vote. If you're online, please do so. If anybody's got problems with that, if you can't see the poll because you're on a phone or something, then you may need to move things around. Only 9? Really?
Jane
That's
says
okay.
that's
Well,
it.
what's the results? Oh, well, that's 2 of us. Two are in the room, so. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, got a vote.
At least the rainbow lorikeet got a vote, yes. So the red kite is the overall winner. So now.
I'd like to go through those other folders I've got on there so I can read out.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I can say who won.
Let me just. So that's commended from portrait.
That's cool, yeah. That's
Yes.
Kathy Garlic.
Right. And then that's the crimson rumped toucanet, commended again. And let me just do this the easy way. And then we have the commended, what is it, Hoatzins? I don't know. They're beautiful.
Mike Taylor.
And Kestel was also commended.
Jonathan Pearson.
4 different people.
Yeah, excellent. And the second prize is for the.
That's Ian Sylvester.
Oh, well, it's in Iberian green woodpecker and.
Sue Truby.
Excellent. Well done, Sue Truby. Are any of those here tonight? No?
We've had to do a lot of posting.
Oh, okay, a lot of
Okay,
posting to do. Let me move on to the next folder. I'm expecting it to come on top of that, but it's not. Bear with me. I'll close those down. There we are. That's the chestnut-breasted coronets.
That's Brian Hutchings.
The commended Griffin vultures. Second, the shoveler.
Sue Truby.
Oh, she's doing well today. And the overall winner.
Brian Hutchings is doing pretty well as well.
So it's his red kite that's won the overall.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
These
And-
are the only ones I could identify all on my own.
Oh, again, it's not. I have to keep moving them around. So, little egret.
That was Marek.
Hey, Marek, well done, commended. And Peregrine.
And that Alan Butch. Hooray, he's in there as
Well done, Alan.
John Absalom.
Hey, well done, John. Oh, you got it, obviously, but I'm really pleased because the birds in Berkshire is a relatively recent category. And it's obviously getting a good lot of attention. Good. And the other tree creeper for second.
That's Dave Rhymes.
Excellent. And the last one, the winner with the missile thrush.
Sue Truby.
Wow,
done
so she's
really,
got
really
two first and a second. Wow, that's impressive. I'm afraid I don't think there's anybody here that we can actually award the trophy or the prizes to.
Oh, that makes my life. Well, I was hoping after tonight that would be the end of it.
You got it out. I will leave the red kite up as that was the overall winner.
Let me just take this before I leave it behind me.
By all means, yes. And just say that's a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Derek. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy. I hope you had some pleasure in doing this as well.
Thank you very much.
I certainly.
And there are prizes.
Ooh.
So last year I bought a bird book and gave it to the prize. So I had a look through my bookcase and I realized I've actually got 2 copies of Eric Hosking's An Eye for a Bird. This is the 1973 Arrow version. I've got the first edition original one. So this can go to the first prize winner if they want it. If not, give it to somebody else. And I've also got this book because I realized I've got 2 copies of this as well. This, as you can see, is the 1931 pocket edition of J.E. Vincent's Highways and Byways in Berkshire, which has got interesting pictures of places that are in Berkshire, like Farringdon, not in Berkshire anymore, because I realised I've actually got the 1906 first edition, so I don't need 2. So you can give those to the prize winners if they want.
Thank you.
Otherwise, to somebody else.
Thank you very much indeed, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the comments as well, because I thought there's a lot to learn, and I find that absolutely fascinating listening to them. Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ed. Congratulations to all the winners, commended everybody, and also thank you to everybody who entered photographs, because it gives us a wonderful evening of lovely photos to look at and to hear some sensible comments about as well. So thank you all very much indeed.